Hey there, Aaron Wills again, bringing you another reaction video. I started this on Sunday, the 25th day of August in 2024 at 6:25 p.m. Along with welcoming you to my channel, allow me to thank you for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe before sharing this video and turning the post notification bell on. And now I'll go to YouTube and find something to react to. It'll probably be another idiot cop or corrupt cop video. Idiot cop or corrupt cop or tyrant cops. It's the same thing every damn time. Let's see. Why? YouTube.com. Enter. Now what do you want? Phone. Here we go. I'll search for another writing video. I enjoyed doing those. I actually got a view on the last one I did, just not that long ago. That's more than I got on some videos I made days ago. Some random videos I made days ago have no views, and that one got views in a couple hours. How do I search on this? Natalia. Another author tuber, Natalia Leigh. Let's see if she's in my search bar already. Leigh. She wrote a book called Pistol Daisy I thought was pretty good. I read that. Along with Abby Emmons' book, 100 Days of Sunlight. Let's see. This must be, where's she at? That's her right there. I'll bring her up, see what she has. She has in videos recently. That's her. I don't know if she's done anything recently, but we'll find out, shall we? Finishing wait a minute. Why can't I say developmental? Finishing developmental revisions on 2 books. Romance writer, vlog, Natalia Leigh. That's what I want. Let's see if she's got anything recently. And here's a writing vlog, it says. Let's see what it is. We'll watch this. She's a good...
Do you need to learn about AI if you don't work in tech? Will it help you in your career? The short answer is yes. It's likely that whatever career you're in will benefit from...
My short answer is no. It's actually shorter than your answer. Alright. Here we go. What we got? Video plays soon. Here we go.
From AI tools. Try it yourself. A great place to begin is the Google AI Essentials course.
When we first arrived at St. Jude, it was just Claire and I. She was still recovering from her brain surgery, and side effects of that surgery meant that she had to relearn how to walk and how to speak.
You can join the battle to save lives by supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
2 months after we arrived, my 3-year-old...
Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Natalia Leigh. I'm an indie author and the managing editor at Enchanting Publishing. And welcome back to a editing slash kind of early preparation for publication vlog. It has been a few weeks now, I think, since I last updated you, and a lot has happened in those 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long it's been. So I'm going to take this moment to kind of get you.
I think she's working on her third book in the Pistol Daisy series. Pistol Daisy was the first book, and then I forget what the second one was. If I think about it, it'll come to me, but I forget. But she's working on her third installment of that series, I believe. Unless she's finished that and she's working on another one. Let's see what she has to say. I think she's working on the third installment of her Pistol series.
Caught up on everything, and then moving forward, I'll be kind of bringing you along with me probably this week, maybe even next week. We'll see how much footage we get, and we're gonna go from there. So, the last time I touched base with you, I think I was about to get started on the first round of revisions on the third book in my paranormal romance trilogy. As it turns out, I have finished that round of revisions, and then after that I went right into the first round of revisions on my contemporary romance, and I finished that this morning. And let me say, I have never ever edited a book as fast as I edited that contemporary romance. I think contemporary romance might be my new thing that I really want to write. I have so many ideas for other books. I have another contemporary romance partially outlined at this point. I think it's like halfway outlined. But anyway, I finished both of those revisions. So both of those books are now on their second draft. And maybe tonight, if not tonight and tomorrow morning, I'm going to start the third draft on the paranormal romance book. So that's what I've been doing. Mew also got really sick. She is okay now. She's sitting right here. She has her little food plate there, so she's grooming herself now. She is doing much better now, but she got quite sick for like 2 weeks. And now we're on probably the third week, and she still has some lingering like symptoms, and the sickness that she got, whatever it was, the vet wasn't able to tell us.
Oh.
But whatever she got, it just like kept changing and kept changing and kept changing into something else. But she is finally on the...
When the vet doesn't even know what's wrong with your pet, that's telling you something. That's probably pretty scary. If the vet doesn't know what's wrong with your cat, that's very scary, probably.
Up, and that was just so stressful. Of course, I'm sure you all know this, anyone who has animals in the family, when they can't tell you what they're feeling, and they can't...
My whole family are a bunch of animals, especially my last living relative, my Aunt Kara. She's a fucking animal for sure. A female dog, to be exact.
Can't tell you what they need. It is just so stressful and difficult and scary. And she is 16. She's a senior girl, so I do my best to take really, really, really good care of her. So seeing her struggling and not feeling well was super hard on me. I did not feel like filming at all. I was just like hovering at her bedside constantly. So I'm very, very glad that she is starting to feel better. So that went on. Finished those revisions. Let me go ahead and get these pulled up. I'll let you know where the word counts are sitting. I added to both of them. I didn't add a ton, and I especially did not add a ton, I don't think, to the paranormal romance. And I think I've learned a really important thing for myself. I've always been an outliner. I have tried a little bit of pantsing, and it doesn't work for me. That's just not the way that my brain operates. I cannot sit...
I'm a pantser all the way. I never outline. I just pants. I pantsed my first book, and I'm pantsing this book I'm working on now. I'm a pantser. It works for me. I don't outline. I just get an idea of what I want to do with this chapter I'm working on, and I write it. And I get an idea for what I want to do for the next chapter, and I write it. I don't know what an outline would do any differently. Here we go. Tell us, Natalia, what's going on?
sit down and just like be free and write something, I find that not having an outline is stifling to me. I can't do it. And with these two books, I edited both of these books using my new outlining method. And that new outlining method uses quite a few different craft books and styles and different outlining methods all kind of meshed into one. I outlined these two books using that new method. They're the first two books that I ever outlined using that method, and I think it's a game changer for me because going through these revisions, I had very, very minimal developmental changes to be made, and I attribute that to how meticulously I outlined them. I guess I always, up to this point, kind of had it in my head that no matter what I do, no matter how carefully I outline, like there has to be this huge round of developmental revisions. Like a lot of people talk about that too. Like it's kind of hyped up, isn't it? Like, okay, I'm doing my developmental revisions now. And I get it. That is where the heaviest revisions can happen. But with this way I'm outlining now, reading through these books, I really found that I didn't have plot holes. I didn't have inconsistencies. I didn't have these big things that were problematic and needed to be fixed to make the plot work. Like when I wrote the second book in my paranormal romance, I'm sorry, my glasses always get smudged from my eyelashes. Like I literally clean my glasses probably 50 times a day because my eyelashes just brush against them and smudge them. It drives me mad. But when I wrote book 2 in my paranormal romance,
Literally 50 times a day, I doubt.
trilogy, I had not yet started learning, or I had not yet started using my new outlining method, and that book needed a lot of help. That book needed a heavy restructure. It needed many chapters reworked, moved around, copy and pasted, revised. That required a heavy developmental revision. Book 3 didn't. There were minimal changes. And then what I did do, I finished 2 of the scenes that I had left unfinished in the first draft. So of course I finished anything that was not yet complete. So now I have a nice, full, kind of clean and polished draft. And then with my contemporary romance, there were just a few little conversations that I knew.
Forgive me for breathing into the microphone to my nose. Like that. I've got a lot of the old sinuses going on. And I have to just sit here and breathe. Here we go. Let's go.
I needed to add conversations between the main female character and her love interest, things that I just felt like I want to deepen their conversations. That's something I'm always kind of working on now, is working harder on my dialogue, trying to make the dialogue go somewhere instead of it just being like dialogue that's just filler. And I had so much fun writing those 2. I even told Greg this morning, I finished that revision, and I told him, I think this is my favorite book I've ever written. And up until this point, Pistol Daisy has been my favorite book I've ever written, but I think I can say now that this contemporary romance is probably my favorite I've ever written. And for very different reasons. This book is nothing like Pistol Daisy. It's a contemporary. It's set in Los Angeles, California, and it was so fun. I loved every moment of it. So anyway, what I was trying to say before I got incredibly distracted was that with this new outlining method, I think I might be able to cut a huge chunk of time out of my revision process, because if I can nail the entire plot, like really nail it in the outlining phase, I can save myself a month or 2 months of time that I then do not have to devote to heavy developmental revisions. And there have been authors that I have, listened to interviews of, or, I listened to them on podcasts.
All right, I wanted to switch to this podcast called Unresolved Textual Tension Not sexual tension, textual tension. I think it's a great book. Great. They review books and whatnot. I think that's a great title for their podcast. Doing what they do. Unresolved textual tension. This is one that says roasting bad books. Let's see what they're... There you go.
Hey everybody, Tim Walls here. Here's the deal. If you're able to give a little bit and help our campaign, we're going to do something kind of fun. If you're selected, we're going to fly some folks out to meet the Vice President.
No one will hire her once they find out she's in prison, which is a thing that happens. She also makes the dumbest comment. Oh my God. Oh.
This is they review books. This one said reviewing bad books, roasting bad books, and they found a lot of bad books. Let's hear what they have to say about whatever. I never read any of the books they talk about. I haven't read anything lately.
Oh my God. This is a Colleen Hoover don't know. She says there is a double standard for women who were in prison and men who were in prison. Where men who were in prison, on top of having the oh my God, what do? They get social currency of being a cool badass that women in prison don't get. So women in prison get all the negative association, but don't get badass association.
It's so stupid.
I have never heard that. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast, Unresolved Textual Tension. It's me, your host, Maria, and with me today, my ruggedly handsome co-host, William.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm rugged, I'm handsome, I'm William. And what book are we doing today, Maria?
Reminders of him? Is that what it's called?
Yes, it is called Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, the infamous. And what happened with this book is that there is a Colleen Hoover TV show. I forget which. It Ends With Us, I believe, is the book that it's based off of. So we were like, oh, we should read that to keep up with the culture. And the thing is, though, that book is basically just abuse apologia, from what I understand. And neither of us really wanted to read that, and so we decided to read this book instead because the synopsis is bananas. And I think this is actually a good thing that we read this one, because I think it gives a better, sort of a better example of the complete mediocrity of her writing without of the whole other social aspect of it that you have to take into account with abuse apologia. And so I will let Maria explain the premise.
This book is also, I don't know why I thought Colleen Hoover wrote silly, trashy romances. Apparently she writes melodramatic romances. Just I want to preface this because what we're diving into is some big melodrama.
For some reason I thought she wrote more rom-com-y stuff, but no, it's more Nicholas Sparks than Love Hypothesis.
This book is about our main
Nicholas Sparks is my favorite contemporary author. He writes love stories. I really like Nicholas Sparks. He's my favorite, actually.
Character Kenna has recently been released from prison and is going back to the town that her her boyfriend of 6 months, when she was like 20 or 21, they got into a car accident while she was driving because they were under the influence, and she thought he was dead when she stumbled out of the car and kind of had a panic attack, but turned out he was alive, and because she stumbled out of the car and left him, it's manslaughter, so she goes to prison. And also, she got pregnant, and her baby was taken from her while she was in prison and was raised by her dead boyfriend's parents, and she no longer has any rights to her children. The book doesn't tell it to you. This is just a synopsis. And she goes back to the town that her daughter is being raised in, also the town that her public trial, well, not public, but her very publicly known trial and the murder of this, like, he was a town sweetheart, you know? Like, everybody knew this guy. And, you know, he died tragically, and everybody blamed her for it.
And because she didn't cry in the trial, everyone's like, oh, what a heartless B-word. She must have murdered him in cold blood.
Heartless
She didn't
bitch,
care about him.
William?
She ran away to protect herself. What a terrible person. But she specifically wants to get to know her child. She's never met her child. She gave birth. They took the baby away. It was a preemie, so she didn't even get to like hold her. Nothing. And she's here. She's here to establish a relationship. And then she falls for her previous boyfriend's best friend. And
who now is like a surrogate father to her child, who is named the absolutely brilliant Maria. What is her child named?
DM.
Carpe Diem.
That's not her name. Her name isn't Carpe Diem. Her name is Diem. The reason you think that is because there's one point where she's like, let's Carpe fucking Diem. And basically she named her child, as she thought about naming her child, she knew she wasn't going to get the rights to her child, because before her child was even born, her dead boyfriend's family was like, we'll raise the child, but we're taking away all parental rights. You have 0 rights, and, you know, you can never see your child. And she was like, I need to pick a name that sees the day, sees Diem. And also, just Diem is not a good name. Don't name your kids Diem. I can see that being something they get made fun of a lot. Like, it's just not in elementary school. I don't think elementary schoolers would understand the name. They'd just be like, oh, someone's named Diem. But middle schoolers, I think that's where you'd start getting some flack. But anyway, that's the premise of the book. And I did not enjoy this book. So as those of you who have been hanging out here long enough know, I'm not like just romance as books that are just romances are not my bag. They're absolutely other people's bags, and I completely understand the need for that, because a younger Maria did like just romance books, you know? I like romance fantasy books. But like, I was absolutely fine with something where the purpose of it was the romance. But the Nicholas Sparks style drama romances where like you should cry, or the characters cry a lot, and there's like a deep dark reason why it's not going to work out, or it just any of that was
They
never.
make Maria turn Eastern European.
None of that is my genre. So going into this, I very quickly, like in chapter 1, I was like, oh god, this was not, because I didn't read the premise. I didn't read the
You never do that.
I never read it.
You just trust me.
Yeah, if you don't know this, I don't read shit. Will goes, this is what we're reading. I opened a book and I start listening to and or reading the ebook. That's it. I don't, so I have no idea. I start reading it and I go, oh, this is not going to be silly good fun times. You know, this isn't silly fun times. This is sad, sack drama times. This is sad, sack drama times. That's what this is. And again, I understand that this is absolutely a genre that some people like. They like the romances a little bit with the angst, with the, like, not a fun will they, won't they, but a...
Can they, will they?
Will the world allow that? Like, some people like that, and that is 100% valid, and I'm not here to take this away from you, but this is a review channel, and I'm going to talk about how I interacted with this book, and this ain't my genre, peeps. This ain't it.
I went in and initially reading it, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be as bad as I thought. Like, maybe this will be okay-ish.
Yeah.
Because I think, weirdly enough, I am more romantic than Maria. And I'll say that and I'll stand by that. I've read many fanfics that are just 2 characters slowly falling in love over 300 pages. Like, straight romance is okay to me. Also, heterosexual romance. So I was like, okay, this isn't totally... It is a little weird not to have, like, a plot about the world or something going on at the same time, but I was like, okay, I can act like to this. Here's the thing with this book that's really bizarre. The author is allergic to genuine conflict And there is a level of essentialism going on that's really weird, and the book overall is just very flat. Like, all the scenes you would think would happen with woman comes back after having murdered her boyfriend and has to get the grandparents of her child to accept her as the mother. Like, all the things you would think, like, oh, okay, what would that look like between them? What would be the arguments? What would be integrating into her child's life be like after this much time? You know, what would the boyfriend think in terms of, dealing with the grief of the boyfriend, and, like, was it really his fault because they were smoking the ganja? All of that stuff you would expect, not in the book. The book is just, Kenna is a sad sack, and why can't people forgive her already?
So there's a couple of things. That is the biggest one. Will just said the lack of knowing how to handle conflict. This book builds up a confrontation that is dealt with in 5 pages. Like 70% of the book is just building up to something that should be a significant conflict, and it is dealt with immediately and with zero pain. Like, there's no dramatic fallout. Like, there's 2 ways you could have handled this book, and I'll talk about the 2 ways you could have written this in a way that I think would have worked a bit better for what the book was trying to do. But my other problem is this book functions off of something that I think really robs it of its ability to work well, which is it hits you with the instant love, the instant infatuation. And I think for this story, because basically you have our main character, Ledger. Also, where Ledger, Kenna, where are you getting these names? Dean? Like, anyway, Ledger is Scotty's the guy that died, best friend from when he was young. They lived across the street from each other. And Ledger has been a, like, best friend father figure to DM, the little girl being raised by Scotty's parents. And they all have a really negative image of Kenna. And by making it instant infatuation before he knows who Kenna is, it robs the narrative of having genuine moments where he thinks differently about her. Because the vibe from the start is because he's into her, he wants to think differently about her. He's already primed by being into her, by finding her incredibly compelling. Because it's not instant love where they're immediately in love with each other, but they're instantly into and compelled by each other in a very intense way. But it makes it that all the moments where he, like, goes, oh wow, she's not how I expected, feel a bit less significant than they could be. And if you're going to write this, like, if you're genuinely going to write this story, you need to embrace the hard parts of this. The fact that it should have taken him much longer to turn around on her. It should have, there should have been conflict. She should have, like, the amount of stuff she should have had to, because, like, a lot of the problems is all the terrible things she really had to deal with happened prior to this book starting. And for the most part, things go really well for her. Like, she wouldn't agree with that, but really well with her. Like, there's never actually a confrontation with the grandparents. There's never actually, like, nobody ever yells at her and is like, yo! Which, you know, that's what should have been in this, but, like, that's what the book was setting up. Like, there was supposed to be this, and by having the insta-love with Ledger, you deny even that relationship working as well as it should have been. By having that instant infatuation, and again, everybody knows I'm a slow burn bitch, okay? And frankly, this book could have used a little bit of a slow burn, a little bit of an enemies to lovers flavor. I hate to say it, but it could have used this. This book could have used an enemies to lovers development, okay? And instead, they're just immediately into each other, but and so it's more like a forbidden lovers. Like, if you had to assign a trope, it's a forbidden lovers, and that just doesn't work for, like, again, what Will said is 100% true. This book is conflict averse. Hugely. Any slight amount of tension is immediately dealt with. immediately.
It's a weird book because, again, you would expect there to be more melodrama or even just basic conflict in it, and also because like that's how you generate angst, really. But the book doesn't do that. Again, all like Maria was saying, all of that happened before. And again, I think this, and the thing is, as I was reading this book, I was like, oh, there are so many more interesting ways to tell this story, but they would all require Kenna not to be a perfect character.
Yep.
And the thing is that again is something that Colleen Hoover is just like, no. She's great. Everybody should just forgive her. The reason is is their own emotional problems that we have to respect, but are also stupid. And everyone also is like a little too perfect. And also, her prose are so bad. So there's this thing that happens where she'll just state line by line, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And that is such a beginner to mistake to make in your prose. It's bizarre that she is this popular and got away with it, and an editor wasn't like, this is repetitive, you need to break this up.
And her syntax is very, on top of the start of her sentences being repetitive, her syntax in general is just very repetitive. It reminded me of, you saw the folding, I mean, of course, the folding ideas where he reads, the angry gamer.
James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd.
And how the sentences are all just like straight subject verb.
Yes.
Like just really, and Colleen Hoover is not that bad, but definitely has some repetitive sentence structure going on here. And so what the book has going for it is the tension it is creating and the drama it is creating out of its premise. But the book doesn't deliver on it. And so it saps what is a, like, if you're here for the drama, I'm going to argue you don't actually get it.
And this is, like, not a good romance. That's the other thing, is, like Maria said, there's very little chemistry between the two characters. Because the thing is, I went into this going, okay, this is wish fulfillment, you know what I mean? Like, this is going to be straight up wish fulfillment for girlies who like their romances. And this is not it. I would argue many of the books we've read that were more annoying than this at least handled the romance a little bit better. Like, there's books, this to an extent was just sort of harmless by being a blob of nothingness. But by virtue of that, there's also so little going on with the two characters besides Kenna being really, really hot. Also, something I need to mention, the way this woman writes prison is so clearly white lady who read an article once about Martha Stewart being in prison and has no idea the rest, like, what even vaguely prison is like. Like, at one point, Kenna's like, yeah, no, I prefer to call it the facility. And I'm like, really? Not any jargon or slang that she picked up inside? That's it? No?
No, there is no jargon. It's like Kenna went to prison and interacted with one lady and never had a single conversation or interaction with a single other person.
It's very odd, and it just, again, it's like she did no research on this. It genuinely feels like she just wrote down and tapped this out in a month and was like, published, I'm gonna make millions.
Yeah, that very much is the vibe, because the idea of having a character whose formative young adult years are spent in prison, but who is determined to make a go of trying to be a proper mother to their daughter that they've never actually met, is a compelling setup. But even then, I'm like, you just rocked up? Like, let me just tell you this, it's not like she was like, okay, I'm gonna work for a year, save a decent amount of money, get myself, she rocks up, is in a efficiency with a blow-up mattress, zero money to her name, and not like, on just like a logical level, if I was in a position where I needed to prove myself to a bunch of people, because not only do they hate her because they blame her for the death of their son, and because of how it happened, they think she abandoned him to die on the side of the road, and if she had called 911 when the crash first happened, he would have lived. But they also just didn't like her when they first met her. She seemed like a fast and loose, corrupting influence on their perfect, good town homeboy.
For some reason, she thought it'd be a good idea to wear a low-cut shirt to a family dinner. Like, not to victim blame or whatever, but, like, that doesn't seem realistic. Like, that doesn't seem like a thing a real person would do.
Yeah, especially with how thoughtful she is. at every point in the book with him, with a bunch of stuff, like, just a ton of things. Or how, like, she holds Scotty's cigarette for him while he goes to do something, and then his mom comes, and instead of being like, yo, you need to tell your mom that you smoke because she currently thinks I smoke, and I got flack for this, and he's like, there's no actual way. Like, listen, sometimes when you meet people's parents, it's hard. Sometimes their parents can be intimidating. Sometimes their parents can be, like, they can have judgments. But this is a gorgeous white girl meeting a white family, you know? Like, it's not like there's any other, like, and they don't know that she comes from a not great family or a not great background. She is in full control of what her first impression. She's not dealing with any racial biases, which are real. Anyone who has been in an interracial relationship knows that there are a ton of things you guys have to navigate in that. She's not dealing with, like there's so many biases that she's not, like, all you had to do was, like, just be like, I'm meeting his his parents, who he's described a ton of times. He talks about his parents a lot. What am I? And the reason she wore the low cut top was because it was his favorite.
And see, the thing is, there's a lot of small things like that. We're going on about it, but like that, there's a lot of small things like that in the book that don't feel like a real person wrote it. The way, I swear to God, the way she writes children is, tell me you've never interacted with children without telling me. And I think she actually has children, but the way she writes the DM is so stupid and just child, like, not, she's childish writing it. The DM doesn't feel childish. She feels like a manic pixie child.
Yeah. I was gonna say that she feels like a manic pixie dream girl as a toddler.
Yeah, this is the Inception years.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the Kenna's background, we'll figure out, is real. She had a real tough childhood, and it's weird because she doesn't feel like she grew up with that, and she doesn't later on have the markers of that in terms of how she deals with relationships. Like, her mother kind of abandoned her, and she doesn't really necessarily have that very keen, like, oh my god, everyone's gonna abandon me feeling. Like, I have friends who have had very rough childhoods, one of which you guys know, and she'd be fine with me saying it. So
it impacts how they interact with things to this day.
Quite a lot. And but the thing is, Kenna never feels like that, and that's because her childhood is just sort of cheap angst that didn't have to happen on screen. And that's kind of the thing that I think is sort of insidious about this book, is there's a lot of small problematic things because Colleen Hoover is such an incompetent writer.
I think we've done enough at this point to set up the basic. Obviously, we didn't like this book. If you liked it, maybe don't watch this. I should have said this earlier.
Yeah, the thing is, people often watch our videos and are like, do you guys only hate videos? No. We have a whole playlist called Yes, We Like Books. I'll try to remember to put it up there. Yep, all right. Maria, what was the latest book we read that we liked?
Shogun? Well, I read
Shogun.
Yeah, that was one where we liked it. And it's doing terribly, so go watch it. And then before that, you and Katie read. There's a couple you and Katie read that you really liked.
I'm totally blanking on what they are, and I refuse to go check the list. Like, if this book had been good, I would have been able to make a good thumbnail that was like, Colleen Hoover, actually good writer. So it's not like we're incentivized necessarily to make this a video where we own the book.
The Witcher.
The Witcher, we all kind of.
Scorpion.
Oh yes, no, all good books. So don't complain about it in the comments. And while you're at it, like and comment on this video. It really helps us, especially if you're one of our returning fans. Please like it. It really helps. Again, we're doing terribly in the algorithm because we've been liking too many books lately instead of disliking them, and that's more of the place I want to take the channel, but it's going to be tough. And also, we have a Patreon. We're not going to shill the whole thing because that's kind of long right now. But if you want to meet a lot of cool, sexy, smart people, we have a Discord and we have a book club. Okay, how does this book start?
So this book starts with our girl Kenna moving back to the town that Scotty grew up in, and specifically starts with one of the dumbest moves. If you're coming back into a town to win over the mother and father of the man you loved that you unfortunately were involved in the accident that killed him, and you didn't realize he was still alive and thus left him for dead. if you were going to do that, step one, how this book opens is what you should not do. She passes the spot of the accident. She's in a taxi driving into town, okay? She's got nothing. She's got like her backpack of stuff. She was out of prison. She lived in a like group home situation as a transitional house for I think a year. And she's finally like footloose, fancy free, okay? And she's in the cab going into this town, and she sees the spot where Scotty died. She sees one of those white crosses that people put up to memorialize the place where somebody they loved has died. And she knows that it was probably Grace, Scotty's mother, who put that there. But she decides, you know what? Stop the taxi. Because Scotty hated roadside memorials. He thought they were really dumb. And so, to honor the dead guy that everybody is mad that he's dead because of her, she removes the memorial.
And the thing about it is, this gives you an impression of Kenna that's not going to be borne out through the book, that you think she's a little bit irreverent and maybe like a little punk bra.
And a little devil-may-care, like...
Yeah, and then that's not who she is throughout the entire book.
No, she's so painfully aware of other people's thoughts. Like, she's so painfully aware of her situation, how other people are going to perceive her perception of, like, her lack of self-confidence. Like this is a ballsy-ass move. You know? And the taxi driver's like, should you be doing? And, like, in the rest of the book immediately would have been like, oh my god, what if this guy goes back and talks to someone and, like, I get recognized? Like, at no point, all you would have to say is, you know that cross? And everybody would be like, yeah, that cross from that big, very public death that happened to one of our own that marked his grave. Who's going to tell Grace? And then all you need to do is for someone to find out you're back in town, and then everybody's just going to assume, correctly, you took it. Does this come back and become a problem that needs to be dealt with at any point? Is this a nice... this book is going to have conflict and we're setting one up now that will pay off later? No. It doesn't come up until the very end, and it has no impact on how she interacts with the rest of the people in town. It's just here to give a bad impression of what Kenna's personality is that is not actually her personality, because she doesn't do anything this ballsy or irreverent or, you know, like, it's not like she's like, I have my own beliefs, like, I'm my own person. I've had a long time to think about, like, the stuff that has happened, and I am not going to be apologetic. I'm here to get my daughter and like make a life for myself. That's not Kenna.
The other thing is that, and this will run in a lot, is that Kenna sometimes has very unhinged behavior, but it's never really, you never quite feel like it springs from, like, again, going back to it, and we'll talk about it more, but, like, Kenna actually emotionally is pretty well regulated and stable, and so when she does kind of crazy things, it just seems out of character instead of springing from some kind of, like, instability under the surface or grief or attachment trauma. And so, again, this was Colleen Hoover going like, oh, this is a good way to start, because I needed to info dump a lot. This book has so much fun. There's a whole... one of the things that'll happen, and I think it starts here, is that Kenna writes diary or letters to Scotty, who is dead. And I think halfway through this, I messaged a friend who was also reading this, and I said, why does this dumb bitch keep telling Scotty things he already knows? Because that's the thing. Her letters are all about how they interacted from her viewpoint and reminding him of things that happened in their life. And that makes no sense. He knows this happened. Either she should be writing letters to him now about what's happening, or she should be writing these letters about the past to Diem to show them to her when they get there. Or even like, I'm trying to remember this, so I'm going to do it like I'm speaking to Scotty, but it's so that we can tell our daughter. Like, it's a real weird lapse in judgment, and it just feels like info dumping.
She talks about their first date. He was there. She talks about, we get a rundown of the first time they met, and he did like a dumb quirky thing to like get her to notice him. And we get it written in painful detail. Again, and it's not that it makes so much more sense. God, you're so right to write it to DM and be like, I want you to know I'm sure your grandparents tell you about your father, but I want you to know what I knew of him, because there's a lot of people that you probably know that knew him, but nobody who probably knew him the way I did. And this is his stories, and it should be letters from mom to daughter talking about Scotty as a person. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what Scotty looks like.
No idea. It also should be much more her. Like, it could be a really interesting tool for her to be like, look, I'm going to tell you everything, even when it's ugly to me, and we could get an idea for who she was then, and how she could lead up to a drunk driving accident. There's, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a movie I'm going to be referencing a few times that had, who's that actress? Anne Hathaway in it. And it's about her coming after, I don't know, rehab to her sister's wedding. And when she was young, she killed their brother through drunk driving. And it's a movie that's very emotional. It does this story much better. There's a lot of grief. She asks her parents, like, why did you let me drive him? Like, you knew I wasn't doing well. You get a sense for, like, this is a thing she is never going to be able to atone for, and she somehow has to live with it. And, like, there's a lot of complexity there. She's also, like, a little bit shitty, which is really funny to me. But, like, it's a very good movie, and this book doesn't do that. And so it could have been a really interesting tool for her to be like, look, I'm going to have to be honest about myself in a way that is very painful, but I'm going to do this for you, my daughter, type of a thing.
And everything that, I think, connecting to that, and the idea of that character still being a little shitty actually works because people are nuanced. And I think one of the missed opportunities in this book is everything, all the negative ideas that they had of her from when she was younger were all false. They were all accidents of, instead of her just being, like, kind of thoughtless. And because the thing is, I don't think it's bad to have your 21-year-old self be someone that you're not super proud of later in life, and to look back on and be like, I learned these lessons, I'm not that person anymore. But the thing that this book tries really hard to set up is that Kenna was good best girl from the start, and any negative opinions that they had of her were just misunderstandings or problems of fate. So I'll basically tell you now, because I think this is a really valid thing too, because I think this book would have been stronger if she had been a little bit of what they thought she was, and she had just grown past that. And also to say, like, but your son was the same way, that's why we were together. Because
yes, I thought that's what's going to happen, is they were going to have to confront the fact that, yeah, their son was kind of using drugs, and this is sort of partly his fault, not particularly, but like this is kind of partly he was involved, and they were going to reject her for offering that view of their son, and then they would have to grow to learn, like, we have to accept a more rounded view of our son. He was a person, not just a memory, and there is a part of his life we can learn through her that's ugly but is truthful. And also, I changed my mind about the diary thing. It should start with her very glowingly describing scenes of her and her father, and then as the book goes on, she's like, no, I need to revisit this and tell you I was high when we did this thing, and I don't remember what the ring looks like, or something like that.
Yes, exactly, because the two of them, as most people, like younger people, they were doing the drinkings and that. And so back to the scenes with her and meeting the parents for the first time. One of the first issues is that she didn't have a good relationship with her parents. She doesn't know how to function in a kitchen, so she doesn't offer to help prepare the meal. She just kind of sticks to Scotty because he's her lodestone. Like she can't move past him because she's so anxious. And to potentially have it where her and Scotty were just so obsessed with each other because they're 21, like 23 in love. They were just so into each other, and he was like, here, look at these photos, or here, look at my this, and let me show you all this. And then she realizes in retrospect, I should have offered to help. I was so wrapped up in him that I didn't think about offering to help, and I should have. That's something, because at least if they would have said, no, go enjoy.
Pro move when you're dating, always take the family side against whoever you're dating. They'll appreciate it. They always, you always have to back them up in arguments. It's really weird.
And also, if they're teasing the person that you're dating, you jump. You gotta
get in there.
So my one mom loved teasing is part of her love language. Love languages, like relentless, and my boyfriend shares that with her, and so when the two of them are together, it is just a let's make fun of Maria fest. It's great, but it immediately helped bond my mom to him, so good advice. Also, Also, you should always offer to help. A lot of people's parents are going to say, no, don't worry about it. You're a guest. You go to, but at least do the offer. Like, make the offer, and, that way they can decide. Because I guarantee you, I can see Grace being like, oh, no, you go, have a good time. She would have appreciated it. But again, how it's framed is, just sad, anxious thoughts.
Anxiety.
Can't do the thing. Instead of something that feels more like, because we're humans, we make mistakes, we go into situations, we screw it up, and we're like, oh my God, why did I do that? Like, why was Pastor Maria the dumbest girl in school?
That's the other thing about Kenna that we'll come to realize is she's a very passive character. This story really isn't her story. This is really Ledger's.
The voice actor for Ledger talks like this.
Oh my God, his voice actor is so bad. I mean, part of the reason Kenna's character almost works in the audiobook is that her voice actress is actually quite good. There's a part where she's reading a diary entry, and you're just like, oh, this is almost just a dramatic exercise for her in building it. No, Ledger's voice actor he's good if this was a Tom Clancy novel.
Yes.
Like, he has such a masculine feeling to him that I'm just like, this is not working, guys.
Like, it's
very flat too and unemotional.
The next mishap that happens when she first meets them is they go out onto the patio. She doesn't smoke, but our homeboy Scotty does smoke, and he goes to pee around the side of the house because, God forbid to come inside and do that in the house you live in, or that you were raised in.
That was so weird. Again, it would make so much more sense if they were, like, very high, like they were druggies almost.
He gives her the cigarette to hold, and then Grace comes out, sees it, brings a red Solo cup, and is like, none of us smoke here, please use this as an ashtray, and judges her for it. And it would have made way more sense if she actually did smoke. Like, I'm okay with Scotty going off and they didn't realize Scotty smoked. But I think, again, that she did smoke and her turning around at some point going, yeah, I smoked. But Scotty was the one that got me into smoking. I didn't smoke before him. I'd never gotten, like, high before him. And your son was still a good person with a great, a great future ahead of him. But he did these things, and I'm not the person that did that. But instead, Kenna is sweetest, best, golden girl, and, and they never deal with the fact, at no point does this book deal with the fact that Scotty was the one who actually smoked, that the night that Scotty died, they had been drinking, and they had gotten high, and they'd gotten higher than they expected. Scotty was more drunk and more high than Kenna, so he asked her to drive. She shouldn't have done it, but at no point do they, deal with the fact that, no, these were habits that we both had that absolutely we should have done it at a house, in a place where we were safe and, where we didn't have to drive afterwards.
Or even that it made our behavior a little shitty. So maybe also Scotty didn't want to admit to his mom that he was the one drinking or whatever. And the thing about it is, if you focus a little bit more on the substance abuse issues, that is such a great conflict for a parent, because that would force their parents to go, what did we do wrong that led him to that path? Even if they didn't actually do anything wrong, you as a parent are always like, why did he feel the need to do this thing? And you can never really have that answered, and that's really tragic. And it's weird the book doesn't take this very organic conflict that's meaty and is at one point, Ledger will say none of us are bad people, we're just all sad people who can't get along. And it's that actually is something where, okay, it is difficult to parse through an issue like drug abuse and where that comes from, and maybe confronting that your child, he was a good guy, but, he's not the saint you remember.
And to clarify, this book doesn't have drug abuse. At no point does Scotty, does Scotty or Kenna have actual drug, neither of them are alcoholics, they just had some beers, a few too many for what they were doing that night, and they had a joint and they got higher than expected. The stuff was stronger than they thought it was going to be, is the vibe. So there isn't actually...
Your podcast will continue after a calming message from Natural Vitality by Grammy Award-winning artist Lil Jon.
Hey, it's Lil Jon here. Let's take a moment to calm your mind with Natural Vitality. We'll start with some calm magnesium. And now let's breathe. naturalvitality.com.
But for a parent to realize my golden child's son actually smoked pot.
And also, they could just be old school like that, where they're just like, the ganja, the reefer?
Oh my god! He was a hip, you know? And then no!
That could have impacted how they're raising DM now, you know what I mean? Like, that's a very thorny issue.
And it also would have been great for, like, kind of turn around on Ledger and be like, he told me you two smoked weed together. And then for Scotty Parrott to be like, Ledger? Them having to come to terms with that, and then everybody being like, you guys are crucifying me for something that Scotty was actively doing that night, and that Ledger did. Like, they just didn't end up in this, like, and yes, I never should have gotten behind the wheel, but my judgment was compromised. And, like, there's so many ways where the messiness and complexities of this, and the reevaluating, like, okay, we have to reevaluate our perfect ideal of our son, but also we have to reevaluate this terrible idea of her. And then find the midpoint of they're humans fuck up, and we can move on. Like, we can acknowledge, like, eventually they get to the point where they go, okay, maybe Scotty did smoke cigarettes and weed, and he did drink more than